What is the best age to get married? It's one of those questions people love to debate, usually with lots of opinions and very little nuance. Some people say early 20s is ideal so you can grow together. Others say wait until your 30s when you know yourself better. And of course, there's always someone in the room saying, never. Here's the truth. There's no magic number. And anyone who tells you there is probably hasn't looked beyond their own experience. I used to think I'd be married by 25. I had a whole plan. Married at 25, kids by 30, everything cute and close together, like a stylish Instagram grid. That didn't quite happen. Because life has its own timeline, and no one tells you how flexible your plans will have to become once real life kicks in. Now, according to research, the age range with the lowest divorce rate is between 28 and 32. Statistically, that's the so-called sweet spot. It's late enough that you've hopefully gotten to know yourself a bit, but not so late that you're set in your ways or discouraged by past relationships. But let's go deeper than statistics. There are 5 main factors that actually matter more than age. First, have you met the right person? This one's obvious but can't be skipped. You can't get married if there's no one you genuinely want to do life with. Second, are you financially self-aware? I'm not saying you need a 6-figure salary, but do you understand how to manage money? Do you know how to talk about finances with another person without spiraling into anxiety or avoidance? Third, are you emotionally ready? Marriage is not just about love. It's about communication, patience, forgiveness, and maturity. You can be 22 and ready or 42 and not there yet. Fourth, what's your lifestyle like? Are you ready to share space, routines, and decision-making? Can you compromise? Can you let someone else's way of loading the dishwasher not ruin your day? Fifth, culture. Your background matters. In some cultures, getting married at 21 is the norm. In others, starting a family at 38 is totally normal. Your environment shapes what you see as on time. But that doesn't mean you have to follow the script. Now let's talk about age ranges. Is 18 too young to get married? For many people, yes, simply because they haven't lived enough to know what they really want. But some 18-year-olds have life experience that makes them ready in ways others aren't even at 35. Is 30 too old? Not at all. In fact, marrying at 30 or later often means you've had time to grow, learn, make mistakes, and enter a marriage with real clarity. Can you be single at 32? Of course. You can be single at any age. Being single doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've had standards. It means you're still writing your story. The real answer to what's the best age to get married is this: when it's right in your life. When you've met someone who fits your values. When you're in a space to give and receive love in a healthy way. When you want a life partnership, not just a party. And yes, that could be 23 or 33 or never. But it's your call, not society's, not your mom's, not your childhood expectations. So instead of asking, what's the best age to get married? Ask, am I ready to choose someone every day, even when it's hard? Am I able to bring my full self into a relationship and still make space for someone else's full self? If the answer is yes, then that's the right age for you. Whether you're 21, 29, or 45, let the timeline go. Live your life fully now. And if marriage fits into that life beautifully, that's when the timing is right. Not a moment sooner. And definitely not because someone else said it should be. Let's go even deeper into this question of the best age to get married. Because if we're being honest, a lot of us ask this not out of curiosity, but out of anxiety. We feel behind. Or we feel rushed. Or we're comparing ourselves to someone else's highlight reel. So let's slow it down and talk about what's actually happening behind the question. So much of the pressure around the right age comes from the idea that if you don't hit certain milestones by a certain age, you've missed out, that you're late, that you're somehow less than. But here's what no one tells you: marriage doesn't fix loneliness. It doesn't fill in the gaps of insecurity or make your life suddenly feel meaningful. If anything, marriage magnifies whatever's already there. If you're content in your life, your identity, your purpose, marriage adds to it. But if you're looking to marriage to give you those things, you're going to struggle. It's not a rescue mission. It's a partnership. Now, let's talk about some of the real reasons people marry at certain ages and what those decisions can look like long-term. Some people marry young because they grew up watching strong, healthy relationships and wanted that life early. Others marry young because of cultural or religious expectations, and sometimes it works beautifully. And sometimes it ends in regret because they never got to discover who they were outside of someone else. Some marry later in life because they spent their 20s building careers, traveling, healing from family patterns, or simply enjoying their independence. And some people wait because the right person simply didn't come along yet. And that's not a failure, that's patience. Let's also be real. There are trade-offs at every stage. Marry young, and you might grow up with your spouse, but you also risk growing apart if you change in different directions. Marry later, and you might come in more self-aware and stable, but you may have more unlearning to do if you've been single and independent for a long time. There's no age that guarantees it'll be easier. There's no age that protects you from disappointment, or divorce, or heartache. And there's no age that makes you immune to joy either. Now, something I get asked often is, what if I feel like I missed my window? Here's the truth. You didn't. Marriage is not like high school sports. You don't age out of it. There is no deadline to find love, to build a family, or to create a partnership that's deeply meaningful. But what can make the waiting feel unbearable is comparison. When your friends are getting married back to back, when your younger cousin is having her second baby, when you scroll through your feed and everyone's wearing matching robes and posing in flower crowns, and you're just eating leftovers and wondering if you're the problem, you're not the problem. The timeline you're on is the one that fits your life, your journey, and the person you're becoming. And sometimes you don't meet your partner at 25 because you weren't ready to be who they needed yet, or they weren't ready to be who you needed. Another important question I get a lot is this: can you still want marriage later in life even if it didn't happen earlier? Yes. You can want it at 35, 45, 55. You can fall in love again after divorce. You can get married after raising your kids. You can find someone who adds joy to a life you already love. It's not either or. You don't have to choose between being fulfilled on your own and desiring partnership. You can be whole and want someone to walk through life with. Let's also talk about something that rarely comes up when people talk about the best age to get married: healing. If you've been through trauma, neglect, abandonment, or dysfunction in your family, you might not be ready to love someone well in your 20s, and that's okay. Healing takes time. Learning to trust takes time. Learning how to receive love in a healthy way takes time. And you know what? Some of the most beautiful marriages I've ever seen were built by people who took that time, who didn't rush, who didn't force it, who did the work and then found love that matched their growth. So instead of asking, "Am I too old to get married?" ask, "Am I growing into the kind of partner I want to be? Am I open to love even if it looks different than I expected? Am I willing to keep becoming more of myself even if marriage never happens, or even if it happens way later than I planned?" There's freedom in that, because love isn't something you chase, it's something you build. And the more you know yourself, the more likely you are to build something solid when it finally comes. So here's the real answer to the question, one more time. The best age to get married is when it's right in your life. Not perfect, not convenient, not according to plan. Right. When your heart, your mind, and your life are ready. Not just for a wedding, but for the work that comes after it. For the choosing, for the building, for the growing together. There's no age that guarantees that. But if you're doing the work now, you're already on your way. And if you're already married and wondering if you did it too early or too late, this still applies. What matters now is the relationship you're building today. Thanks for sticking with me through this deeper dive. I know this topic touches a lot of nerves, and it's something we don't talk about honestly enough. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Did you marry young or later? Are you still waiting? How has your view of marriage and timing changed over the years? We've talked about age, timing, emotional readiness, but now let's talk about the invisible scripts we've absorbed around marriage and how they shape our decisions whether we realize it or not. Most of us didn't just wake up one day wondering when we should get married. We've been fed stories about this since childhood, from fairy tales to rom-coms to the aunties who ask at every wedding, "So when is it your turn?" We've been taught that marriage is the goal, the milestone, the thing that marks a woman as complete, and that's a problem. Because when we believe that marriage equals success, then not being married starts to feel like failure, even when we're doing incredibly well in every other area of our lives. You could have a thriving career. You could be raising children with grace and grit. You could be emotionally healthy, financially stable, spiritually grounded. And still, you might feel behind just because you don't have a ring on your finger. Why? Because the narrative says if you're not chosen, you're not valuable. Let's call that what it is, a lie. You are not valuable because you are chosen. You are valuable because you exist, because you're here. Because of the love you give, the life you live, the person you've become. Marriage doesn't validate your worth. It only complements it if it's done right. And this leads to another layer we need to talk about: settling. So many people get married not because it's the right time, but because they're tired of waiting. Or they're afraid they won't get another chance. Or they've hit that age where everyone else is pairing off and they don't want to be the only one at the table still checking single on forms. I've seen people walk down the aisle knowing in their gut that this wasn't their person, but thinking, well, it's better than being alone. But here's the thing. Loneliness inside a marriage is worse than loneliness on your own. It's one thing to feel alone in a quiet house. It's another thing entirely to feel alone while sharing a bed with someone who doesn't see you, hear you, or understand you. So if you're still waiting, but waiting with intention, hold your head up. You are doing the brave thing, the smart thing, the thing that protects not just your heart, but your future. Now let's flip the conversation for a second and talk about late bloomers, because the world loves a young bride. The blushing 23-year-old with the Pinterest-perfect wedding, the matching robes, the monogram champagne glasses. But the women who get married later, 35, 40, 45, they bring a whole different kind of power into a relationship. They've lived. They've healed. They've paid their own bills. They've learned what they will and won't tolerate. They've built lives that don't need rescuing. And when they say yes to someone, it's not from fear or pressure or fantasy. It's from clarity. There's something incredibly powerful about that kind of marriage. When you're not rushing. When you're not filling a void. When you've taken the time to know who you are, what you value, and what love actually means for you. And let me say this clearly. There is no expiration date on love. Not at 30, not at 40, not at 60. I know people who found love after losing their first spouse, after surviving heartbreak, after raising kids solo, after decades of being told their time had passed. But love doesn't run on a clock. It runs on truth. Timing, alignment. And speaking of alignment, let's talk about how you'll know when it's the right time for you. It probably won't be fireworks. It won't be some mystical feeling like the universe opened up and handed you a husband. It might actually look very normal, but what will happen is this. You'll feel settled, not rushed. You'll feel seen, not just pursued. You'll feel clear, not just excited. You'll be ready to give, not just receive. Because here's the secret they don't tell you in the movies. Marriage is less about the moment and more about the maintenance. The wedding is a day. The marriage is every day after that. And the best time to get married is when you're ready to commit not just to the person, but to the work of loving someone well, to the responsibility of being someone's safe place, to the humility it takes to apologize, adjust, and grow again and again. That's a high calling, but it's also a beautiful one. And if that's what you want, then you don't have to rush. You don't have to panic. You just have to keep becoming. Because the best age to get married is the age at which you are willing to show up. Not as a perfect partner, but as a present one. So if you're 25 and feel ready, go in with eyes open and a heart that's ready to grow. If you're 38 and wondering if it'll ever happen, take a breath and remember. Love shows up when it's supposed to, not when it's convenient. And if you're 50 and still hopeful, or already married but doing the hard work of building something real, you're exactly where you need to be. You haven't missed your chance. You're on your path, and the path is enough. Let me know in the comments if you want a part 4. Or tell me your own story. When did you get married, or are you still figuring it out? How has your perspective changed over time? Because this is not a one-size-fits-all conversation. This is real life. And it's messy, complicated, beautiful, and still unfolding for all of us. Let's keep going. Because the more we talk about the best age to get married, the more it becomes clear. The real question isn't about age. It's about everything underneath age. It's about expectations, culture, pressure, fear, hope. The stories we've been told, and the ones we've started to tell ourselves. And while we're being honest, let's talk about modern dating culture. Because if you're single and navigating today's dating scene, you already know it's not for the faint of heart. Apps, ghosting, breadcrumbing, love bombing, situationships, it's a digital Wild West out there. And somehow, in the middle of all this chaos, You're supposed to just happen to find the person you want to build a life with? And then, on top of that, someone wants to tell you there's a ticking clock? No, just no, we are not doing that anymore. Because here's what today's dating culture requires more than ever: discernment, not rushing, not settling for good enough, not marrying someone because you've been talking for 3 months and it's cuffing season and your friends are all posting engagement pics. It takes wisdom to date in this world. It takes clarity. It takes boundaries. And honestly, that kind of inner stability isn't usually something people have figured out by 22. Not because they're not smart or worthy, but because life just hasn't handed them enough yet. They haven't seen how people behave under pressure, or what happens when attraction fades and character is all that's left, or how to bounce back from disappointment with grace instead of bitterness. That's not something an age guarantees. That's something life teaches you. So when someone says, "You should be married by now," what they're really saying is, you should have found someone despite the culture, the chaos, the confusion, and your own evolving self. It's not fair. It's not realistic. Now let's talk about something we don't say enough out loud: what marriage actually looks like once you're in it. Because we love the idea of weddings. We love the photos, the planning, the dress, the story. But marriage? That's not a storybook. That's real life. That's learning how to fight fair. That's holding space for someone else's trauma while managing your own. That's figuring out how to parent together when your childhoods were nothing alike. That's choosing love on the days it doesn't come easy. And the truth is, marrying too early, without this level of awareness, can backfire. Not because young love is wrong, but because unprepared love is risky. We don't talk enough about how many people wake up one day married and realize, "I didn't know who I was when I said yes. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know what I was agreeing to." And then what? Then you either grow together or you grow apart. This is why the best age to get married is so subjective, because growth doesn't follow a calendar. Some people are ready to grow together at 23, some not until 43, some never. And you know what? That's okay, because here's another truth. The definition of a successful marriage is shifting. For decades, success meant staying married. Full stop. It didn't matter if it was healthy, or happy, or functional. If it lasted, it was a win. But now, people are redefining what success means in relationships. Success can mean choosing a partner intentionally. Success can mean building a relationship based on friendship, trust, and values, not just chemistry. Success can even mean walking away from something that doesn't serve you anymore, with integrity and peace, and starting again stronger. The old rules said, just get married young and stay married forever. The new wisdom says, get married when you know what you're doing, who you are, and why this person is truly right for you. And that wisdom doesn't always show up on time. Sometimes it shows up late, but when it does, it's worth waiting for. So if you're watching this and you're in a season of waiting or recovering or wondering if it's too late, take a breath. You're not behind, you're becoming. You're growing into someone who's going to be able to love deeply, receive love freely, and build a relationship on purpose, not just pressure. And that kind of marriage? The one rooted in clarity and choice and mutual respect? That's not late, that's rare. It's worth being single longer for. It's worth unlearning old beliefs for. It's worth staying grounded while the world tries to rush you. So, to recap, the best age to get married isn't an age at all. It's a mindset. It's a moment in your story when you've learned enough, lived enough, and healed enough to give someone your love with confidence. That might be at 26. It might be at 39. It might be after a heartbreak. It might be when you least expect it. But it will be right. And it will be yours. So give yourself grace. Don't rush your own story just because someone else's looks more complete from the outside. And one more thing. Even if you've been married and divorced or married and disappointed, that doesn't mean you missed it. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you learned. And maybe your next yes will be the one that fits, because it came after becoming. It's about value, identity, readiness, belief systems. It's about what we think marriage is supposed to give us and what it actually demands from us. So in this part, I want to talk about something even more personal. What we believe we're worthy of. Because here's the truth that we don't say often enough. So many women get married when they're not ready. Not because of pressure or age or culture, but because they don't believe they deserve more. They settle. They accept behavior that hurts them. They excuse red flags as just a phase. They ignore their intuition because they've been taught that being chosen is the prize. And they think, well, at least I'm not alone. Or, I'm not getting any younger. Or, he has potential. But a marriage built on potential is a marriage built on hope, not reality. A marriage built on fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of what people will think is a prison, not a partnership. So what if we stopped asking, when should I get married? And started asking, what kind of relationship am I willing to wait for? What kind of treatment will I no longer tolerate? What kind of life do I want to build? And who is worthy of building it with me? That changes everything. Because then, it's not about rushing toward a wedding. It's about becoming the kind of person who's ready for the kind of love that won't ask you to shrink. Now let's talk about this myth that if you wait too long, the pool gets smaller. Fewer good men, fewer options, less chance. But here's the thing, you don't need 100 options. You need one right one. Let everyone else rush into relationships for the sake of appearances. You wait for depth, for safety, for mutual peace. For someone who won't just tolerate your strength, but celebrate it. Let's be honest, real love isn't always loud. It's not always about grand gestures or social media-worthy moments. Sometimes the best kind of love feels quiet, grounding, steady. It's not butterflies, it's peace. It's not a roller coaster, it's a rhythm. It's someone who knows how to show up, not just how to show off. And that kind of love, you often don't have the emotional capacity to even recognize it until you've been through enough growth to stop confusing excitement with compatibility. So maybe you needed to experience that breakup, that detour, that season of singleness that stretched longer than you planned, because all of it was preparing you to be someone who doesn't mistake being wanted for being loved. Here's what I want you to know if you're still waiting. Your life isn't on pause. You are not in the pre-marriage waiting room. You are not incomplete. You are not late. This season is not a holding pattern. It's a becoming season. It's a time to build friendships that sustain you, to heal from wounds you didn't cause, to try new things, travel if you can, laugh freely, eat meals you don't have to share, grow into your own soul. And guess what? That version of you, the one who's whole, joyful, independent, and wise, that's the version who will recognize real love when it arrives. And more importantly, she'll know how to keep it. Now let's talk about something else that people love to ask. Is marriage still even worth it? And listen, I get it. You look around and see divorce rates. You see emotionally unavailable partners. You see people who stay in miserable marriages out of fear or habit. But I still believe in marriage. Not because it's the only path to happiness, not because it completes you, but because at its best, it's a space for two people to fully show up, grow together, hold each other accountable, and build a legacy. Marriage at its best is two people saying, I see your mess, your magic, your growth, your grief, and I'm staying. That kind of relationship doesn't just happen because two people hit the right age. It happens when two people have done enough personal work to come to the table whole, when they've dropped the fairy tale and embraced the work, when they value each other as teammates, not trophies. That kind of marriage? Worth waiting for, worth growing for, worth protecting. So if you're still single and wondering if you missed your moment, please hear this. You're not missing your moment. You are in your moment. You are in the becoming. You are in the preparation. You are in the space where everything that's meant for you is aligning, and it just hasn't caught up to your doorstep yet. When it does, you'll know. Because you'll be ready, not because of your age, but because of your awareness. And when you're ready, you won't be desperate. You won't second-guess your standards. You won't bend to fit into someone's life. You'll know that the right person will make room for you without you having to shrink. That's what we're holding out for. Not perfect, not easy, but intentional, grounded, real. So maybe the best age to get married is the age when you finally figured out that you don't need a marriage to be enough. And from that place, when love does come, you'll choose it, freely, boldly, and it'll feel like the best timing in the world. And after everything we've talked about, the psychology, the pressure, the timing, the personal growth, the healing, I think we've all arrived at the same answer. There's no such thing as the right age, there's only the right stage. And you reach that stage when you've unlearned the noise, softened the expectations, healed what needed healing, and gotten quiet enough to hear your own truth over everyone else's. But there's still one more piece to talk about, and it's this. What does marriage actually mean to you now? Because here's the thing no one warns you about. As you grow, your definition of marriage will evolve. The version of marriage you wanted at 21 is probably not the same one you'd want at 31, or 41, or after a divorce, or after watching someone else's marriage fall apart behind closed doors. For some, marriage used to mean security. For others, it meant finally feeling chosen. For many, it meant ticking a box, completing a step, or being on time in the eyes of everyone else. But the older you get, the more you realize real marriage is not a performance. It's not a success story. It's not even a goal. It's a practice. It's daily work, daily presence, daily partnership. And if you're not ready for that, or if you're not with someone who's ready for that, then age means nothing. Let's be honest, we don't see most marriages for what they really are. We see the couple smiling at brunch. We see the Instagram posts, the matching outfits, the vacations. We don't see the therapy appointments, the long nights, the conversations that go nowhere, the silent tension that builds after a decade of little misunderstandings. We don't see the resentment that grows when two people stop evolving together, or the loneliness that creeps in when emotional connection fades, or the reality of navigating marriage through grief, postpartum, financial pressure, or illness. And that's why it's dangerous to idolize the marriages you see from the outside, or to rush into one because it looks like the finish line to someone else's race. Because no one posts the hard parts, but every marriage has them. You're not going to find someone who completes you. You're going to find someone who reflects you, who holds up a mirror and invites you to grow in ways that are uncomfortable, inconvenient, and ultimately transformative. That's what real commitment is. Not romance, not sex, not even shared goals. It's shared resilience, shared emotional safety, shared responsibility for building a life together. Not one person dragging the other toward their own vision, but both choosing again and again to move in the same direction. And that kind of commitment, it doesn't just require love. It requires maturity, self-awareness, humility. The ability to say, I was wrong without defending your ego. It requires you to be your whole self and to make space for another whole self, who might not always act how you want, or think how you think, or love how you expect. So again, when is the best age to get married? The best age is when you've had enough life experience to know what peace feels like, so you stop confusing chaos for passion. What reciprocity looks like, so you stop giving and hoping someone gives back. What honesty costs, so you stop performing just to avoid rejection. What loneliness really is, so you no longer settle for companionship that comes at the price of your dignity. The best age is when you are finally able to say, I would rather be alone and whole than partnered and half alive. And from that place, marriage becomes a choice, not a survival tactic. Now let's talk about a painful reality for some of you watching. You might have already gotten married, and now you're wondering if you were too young, too unprepared, too optimistic. Maybe the marriage didn't last. Maybe it's struggling. Maybe you feel stuck. I want to speak directly to you. You didn't fail. You didn't ruin your life. You didn't miss your chance at real love. You made the best decision you could with the awareness you had at the time. And now you're growing. That growth might lead to a stronger marriage, or it might lead to the clarity that it's time to release it. Either way, your story isn't over. Because the truth is, marriage is not the reward for doing life right. It's not a badge of honor. It's not proof that you're lovable. It's not evidence that you made it. Your value is not determined by whether you've been chosen. Your success is not measured in anniversaries. You are worthy, whole, and powerful with or without a marriage certificate. Marriage can be beautiful, yes. Secret even. But only when it's healthy. Only when it's honest. Only when it's mutual. And if that's what you want, then it's worth waiting for no matter how long it takes. So if you're single at 34, or divorced at 42, or still figuring things out at 50, let go of the myth that you missed something. You haven't. You've been becoming. And the longer you've been willing to wait for what's right, instead of what's just available, the better you'll be able to recognize it when it shows up. One final thought before we close this chapter. If we stopped asking, what's the best age to get married? And started asking, How do I become the kind of partner I want to have? How do I love in a way that builds, not breaks? How do I enter a relationship without losing myself? Then we'd start building stronger marriages, regardless of when they begin. Because strong marriages aren't built on timelines. They're built on truth, integrity, courage, and a deep willingness to do the work. And you can begin doing that work now, no matter your age, your relationship status, or your past. That is the best investment you can make in yourself, in your future, in the life you're building. And when marriage becomes a byproduct of that, not a pressure point, you'll know it's the right time. If you've made it this far in the series, thank you. This was never about a wedding date. This was about your journey, your self-worth, your voice in a world full of noise. And I hope you leave this conversation not with a deadline, but with a deeper sense of peace. Your life doesn't begin when you get married. It's happening now. Don't miss it.